Ohio State had its usual contingent of Ryan Day, 3 players here today at Lucas Oil Stadium for Big Ten Media Day. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com along with Stephen Means, Andrew Gillis. We all sort of spread around to talk to everybody, and I'm going to start with what I learned from Marvin Harrison Jr. And sometimes these are like subtle things. Stephen, you and I were talking. I'm not like a fashionable person. I don't care. Like I said right away, like, well, I don't know who made those shoes that Marvin Harrison Jr. is wearing. You're like, oh, no, those are Louis Vuitton shoes. Like those shoes cost more than your house or whatever. And may very well be true. Certainly cost more than everything I was wearing, I think, today. But my point, the thing I took away today was not necessarily anything that Marvin Harrison Jr. said was kind of my lasting impression. It's like he's coming in with those. I mean, it's not that they're Louis Vuitton, but they're blue and white. Those are like Colts colors. Yeah. Shoes he was wearing today. He's coming in with like a gray suit and a blue tie, like a royal blue tie, like Indianapolis Colts tie. I go to take a picture of him standing over his right shoulder is his dad's name up here on the Ring of Honor, Marvin Harrison Sr. I think those things are important, and it's not just he's playing. It's an homage to his dad, who played his final season here in his Hall of Fame NFL career. But you get the impression that Marvin Harrison Jr. is very comfortable with what's about to be asked of him in terms of attention, in terms of expectations. That he's been building towards this for a long time, a lifetime. And it's finally arrived, and I think he's ready to wear it and walk around in and feel comfortable. It's not that he doesn't still have high expectations. He's still, all the reports that we hear, it's who's in there working the hardest in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center every day. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. He's still leading this team in work ethic in a lot of ways. But not every player would be comfortable in the same way. Those expectations of following your dad or a brother or whatever can really weigh on some guys. The fact that you were unknown a year ago at this time, not unknown, but you were not Jackson Smith-Njigba was here. He was the best receiver on this team and was the guy who was supposed to lead this offense. And now, a year later, Marvin Harrison Jr. is here as the unanimous All-American and the guy that a big spotlight is on. And I think he's ready for that. And I think he has to be ready for that because it's going to be central to how good Ohio State can be this year. Andrew, you talked to tight end Cade Stover. You're new to the beat, so you're getting to know these guys the first time. Your first chance to talk to Cade, who is a tight end who still kind of carries himself as a linebacker very much. What'd you take away from talking to Cade?
Like you said, it was the first time I've talked to any Ohio State players, any coach. So today was a big day for me. I talked to Cade and the first thing, it was kind of funny. It was like the second minute of the interview of like a 30-minute interview session. And somebody said, what does it mean to you to be one of the 3 players that gets sent to Indianapolis? And he goes, yeah, well, I'm not thrilled by it, to be honest with you. It just, he kind of struck me as a guy, he doesn't really like the spotlight. He just, he talked about his farm a lot. And I think, somebody asked him a question about NIL and he said, I would just prefer a tractor instead of NIL stuff. So, he's very kind of down to earth guy, but in terms of a football aspect, off the field, he kind of cracked jokes and, it was very, very dry humor from him. But in a football sense, he was really kind of honed in on, the goals. And I think they're very easy to kind of deduce what those are. He said there were a few goals that, we didn't accomplish last year that we were really close to. Somebody asked him about the Michigan game. He was like, we lost. What happened in those last 2 Michigan games? He said, we lost. Like, he was very blunt, very to the point. So, I think it's very clear that when you look at a guy like that and kind of see what's going on and kind of how he thinks, this is a guy who came back for a very clear goal and very clear goals, like beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national championship. And last year they wouldn't have beat Michigan and they wouldn't have won the Big Ten, but they were very, very close to a national championship. So, I think that's kind of the number one takeaway that I took from that guy. Just really serious, but I kind of like talking to him. There was a part of me that liked talking to Cade. It was I liked it. I enjoyed it.
I should mention Marvin Harrison Jr. in all his discussions about, well, what are your expectations for this year? What do you want to accomplish? What's out there? Things like, the Heisman and being an All-American, all those things. Number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft. His number 1 thing he says that is like out there that he hasn't accomplished is beating Michigan. Like, that's the thing that is a big driver for him right now. Steven, you talked to JT Tuimoloau. What'd you hear from him?
I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but he had a pretty decent Penn State game last year. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but it was okay. It was just okay. I think JT's sick of the Penn State talk, and not in a bad way of a don't ask me about potentially the greatest defensive game anybody's ever played. It's just right now that's how we know him. We know him as the 5-star recruit that Larry Johnson had to work his butt off much later on in the process than normal to get. And then he came here. He played right away, which is surprising, but we saw it come together in the Penn State game, and it hasn't been anything close to that since. It's been almost Zach Harrison-like, where it's almost there but never really gets it. And he wants that part to click. He wants people to forget about the Penn State game because he wants it to just be a part of the list of things he did here. Very similar to what we saw with Chase Young, where his Penn State game was awesome. Well, so was his Wisconsin game. So was his Michigan game in 2018. So was his Penn State game the year before that. He kept bringing up the word consistency over and over and over again and applying it not only to himself but to the room in general. Of there's a lot of talented guys here who flash, but not in a way that teams fear them. And it's been a while since we've seen a team fear an Ohio State defensive lineman. 4 years now since Chase Young has left, and he can maybe fill that void. And it starts by using that Penn State game and going, oh, wow, I can do this. Now can I do it again? And then can I do it the next week? And then can I do it the next week? And then before you know it, it's a 12-game season. He's an All-American.
Much more about all those guys and everything else we heard today on Buckeye Talk. Get it wherever you can find podcasts and get the text 614-350-3315. You send that text, you get a link. It's a $3.99 per month, but after a 2-week free trial, try us out. Preseason camp starts a week from Thursday.